Washori maskini wengi wananunua gari kwa sasa Kenya. Mimi nafahamisha serikali ya Kenya, maskini wengi wanajitahidi kununua gari. Kwa hivyo tunaomba petroli iwe chini, na ikiwa watakalia meeting wasipandishe petroli, wajaribu sana. Ukiangalia hali ya coast, hali ya bara, yote watu ni maskini.
Sasa ikiongezeka ifike 100, sisi tutaweza kubeba customer kwa sababu wanalia mpaka sasa. Kwa sababu normally we charge 100 bob. But our customers they are rejecting us because kwa sababu ni baya sana ukicharge 100 bob with the community, you will not get anything.
The way the shilling is trading against the dollar could be the reason why we are seeing escalating fuel prices, and of course that's hitting way below. For consumers like us, the rising cost of fuel, there's so many competing needs that we have. So when the fuel prices are high, obviously it affects your food budget, it affects everything else, and you have to set aside much more than you have been doing previously.
Being very high, we are so affected. Wananchi wa kawaida na affected sana, sababu hata kazi zetu tunapata kwamba mapato si vile iliyokuwa zamani. Tena ununuzi wa vitu ulanaoga na mafuta ya taa, niyo inatumizwa na watu wengi, imekuwa bei kali. Sasa ikiendelea kuwa juu, mwananchi wa kawaida ambaye mapato yake ni madogo anafinyirika sana. Hatukuwa tunajua mambo ya dola. Hiyo ilikuwa mtu hajui, lakini sasa tunasikia dola ikipanda, shilingi inashuka. So even the common man ambaye hana masomo mengi ya economy anahusika wakati hiyo dola inapanda.
Mafuta wakati ilikuwa chini ilikuwa mzuri sana, lakini kwa sasa hivi ile inapandishwa na hii jamu iko down, tunaumia sana. Unakuta hata ile pesa yote tunafanyia na inaishia tu kwa mafuta, mpaka tunaenda bila kitu.
Well, we'll be following up on the announcement that is set to be made by the ERC about this month's fuel prices. Moving on, NIC Bank has signed agency deals with Safaricom, MoneyGram and Western Union, seeking a piece of the growing cash transfer services business. The deal with Safaricom makes NIC an M-Pesa super agent. Customers sending or receiving money from abroad can also do so at NIC branches using MoneyGram or Western Union. The move is expected to provide alternative banking channels for the bank that mostly targets the small and medium enterprises. The bank is betting on the wider range of services to grow its market share in the retail market, which supplies the cheapest deposits besides generating fees on transactions, including withdrawals. NIC Bank also plans to recruit more retail and SME customers by opening more branches in the region in the near term. This has seen the bank also grow its transaction-based income and deposits from the cash inflows. The new partnership is part of the bank's strategy to become a one-stop shop proposition that is aimed at attracting customers through easier, faster and convenient banking. Let's now get some updates on farming. Farmers in Muranga are being urged to embrace cassava farming to improve food security in the area. The drought resistant is being championed by the Ministry of Agriculture to farmers to shield them from consistent famines caused by unpredictable rains. This unpredictability has seen the demand for cassavas rise, in turn driving up the price. A 100 kg bag of cassava now fetches at 3,500 shillings compared to 2,000 shillings it fetched 2 years ago. The crop has the ability to sustain farmers and their families financially while requiring minimal attention and water over the reliance of maize and beans has proved a challenge to the government's ambition of ensuring food security. An acre can produce about 15 tons of cassava, giving the much needed alternative to failing staple foods while earning farmers a decent return.
The reason why we have opted to grow cassava because of human consumption and cows. For human consumption, of course, you understand what is happening with global warming. There is not enough rain, and cassava is drought resistant, so it can give you production even the time you are not expecting much of the rain. We allow them to dry, and then we crush them. We take it to the factory, we crush them, we give the cow as a concentrate because it have it is potential in energy for cows and for human beings. We are expecting high yield compared with maize, just like our normal, just like compared with maize and any other staple.
Kenya is already on the way to ensuring sustainable development for her people. The country is therefore charting the way for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals by the year 2030. Speaking at the United Nations Conference in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, President Uhuru Kenyatta says there needs to be a concerted effort by the entire globe and indeed the region to attain this objective.
So nikangojea surgeon ambaye ni Dr. Sanya akakuja akaniambia hii kitu tutakuambia lakini usistuke sababu inakuwa na watu wengi. Nikakaa nikangojea saa 8 Dr. Sanya akakuja akaniambia huu ugonjwa ni kansa na vile ni kansa utafanywa operation na hiyo operation utanunua plate kwa sababu hiyo joo yote itatolewa. Nikamwambia haina shida, wacha niende nitafute pesa alafu nikipata nitakuja utoe.
A few months ago, we told you the story of 47-year-old Henry Osieko from Elgeyo Marakwet County and his struggle with cancer. Several months after being diagnosed with the disease, Henry was still trying to figure out how he would get to Kenyatta National Hospital for chemotherapy, the one thing that stood on his way to good health. And he could not afford to travel to Nairobi, and even if he could, he would not be able to raise the amount needed for chemotherapy. And his is a life that may have contributed to several world leaders converging in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, as the world seeks to find a framework towards raising funding for development. Specifically, the Sustainable Development Goals, whose goals include ending poverty and ensuring healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. This could help people like Henry and indeed the region rid itself of extreme poverty and disease. Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta says this will require a concerted effort by the entire globe.
The development agenda will require enormous financial and non-financial resources. The required resources will be realized through domestic resource mobilization, domestic and international, private and business finance, and international public finance, which include official development assistance.
Kenya's ambassador to the United Nations, Ambassador Kamau Macharia, says this conference could be the game changer.
Because we're now working on a common continental agenda that is linked to the common global agenda, the world is seeking to work in sync because we're looking to see how we can get the right synergies between these various countries so that we're not working cross purposes. A case in point is climate change. You know, it doesn't matter if you clean up your own air in your part of the world or if you don't pollute, if your neighbor is actually polluting and kicking up greenhouse gases that are causing climate change, so it affects you. So we need to have an agreement that cuts across all countries and all societies, and this is what we're trying to do right now.
Sustainable Development Goals will replace the Millennium Development Goals that expire at the end of the year and are achievable by the year 2030. Kenyatta says Kenya has already set up a framework that will push the achievement and sustainability of these goals.
Devolution is taking root, and the decentralization of service delivery and resources is improving access to agriculture, health, as well as education services, while at the same time creating substantial employment opportunities and helping to reduce poverty, hunger, and inequality levels in all regions of Kenya.
And so hope is rife that at the end of the conference there will be an agreement on financing for development as different governments develop the vision that will see a world where no one is left behind and the future planet is protected. Linda Ogutu, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Many thanks there, Linda Gutu, giving us an update from Addis Ababa. Time now to shift focus and get to understand there's a recent report that was released dubbed Human Capital Report, and with us in studio is Marian Mwangi from Deloitte. We'll be speaking to Michael Karanja just to get the gist about this report. Over to you, Mike.
Well, thank you very much, Abby. And just before we get into the nitty-gritties of the Kenya Human Capital Report and the trends that are in Kenya in regards to last year, just looking at Kenya's overall job market, we've seen government's actual push to improving employability of people in this market. Last year, according to the economic survey, they say that 800,000 jobs. Are we in the right track in as far as even just getting the right capital when it comes to all the jobs that need to be done in this country?
I think a lot of effort has been put in place.
Yeah.
First of all, in identifying what does the government need, what do the different areas of government require in terms of capacity and capability, and identifying what are the real gaps, because that's where it begins. And you can see a lot of effort being put in place. You know, some years back we saw the institution of the Kenya School of Government that is actually challenged with identifying the capacity gap in government, and then developing people aligned to achieving the Vision 2030. So I think the government is on the right track. Now it's about entrenching it, making it cultural to develop people, and continuously identifying the capacity requirements, because we live in a very volatile you know environment, and the volatility is not only in the private sector, it also affects the public sector. So equally, government also must, you know, identify those issues that are pertinent for them to address in terms of developing the capability of people, so that we are definitely assured of achieving the MDGs, for example. Yes.
Interesting you mentioned MDGs. Yes. But you just look at the overall sector. There's a lot of focus, especially what happens in the corporate sector is well and good, but the informal sector employs almost 80% of the larger population. When you look at that as a HR practitioner, are you confident in the way even people who are starting up SMEs, do they have the right HR structures and the right kind of environment to nurture and even bring people into the job market with a view of actually making, because I don't believe in informal, I believe everything, there must be some formality to how everything is done.
Oh, good question. And when you think about SMEs and who starts them, so definitely there is some idea of how, you know, structuring ought to be done, because most of those people previously probably worked in a corporate environment, so they have an idea of how, you know, and in very general terms, how a business should be structured and so on and so forth, but not to the standard required, and also not geared to creating the growth that they would like to see. And part of it is because when you look at the, you know, SMEs today, a lot of them have enjoyed, sometimes I think, more growth than they had anticipated, and also because of the volatility. So you start, you know, with a plan that is geared towards achieving a certain objective, assuming that all things remain constant. So you don't have that agility to shift and change as things around you shift and change. And definitely then SMEs, yes, need to focus in terms of the capability, HR structuring, and not just the structures themselves, but then what do people need to know to do? How do they do it, and how is it aligned to the objectives of the business, the targets that you're setting, so that then people have a clear understanding. If I do this, this is what the outcome will be. And invariably, then the business knows if people behave in a certain manner, then we can expect a productivity level of, you know, that drives our targets or our objectives as we would like them to.
So is it a form of charting the cost that, coming up with the cost that you'd like to chart, essentially, you know, in as far as the organization is run?
Spot on. I mean, if you chart the way you're going to go, then you have to ask yourself, what will take me there? And in any organization, people are the ones who drive and make sure that you go where you're going. So it's very critical then, and it's imperative that you have people's people issues at the forefront. Otherwise, then you are setting yourself up to fail.
And it's interesting you mentioned the way you term, this human capital. I mean, when starting a business, people always talk about, I don't have enough capital, so human capital is always, it's interesting that you mentioned that as a human capital trends.
Yes.
By definition, like I was asking you off air, it's termed as an intangible asset.
Yes.
How is that when I can be visibly seen sitting on a chair somewhere doing something?
That's a nice one.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think I would not say just intangible. It's a tangible and intangible asset, and I think it's all about definition. Intangible because the purposefulness of an individual cannot be viewed. The passion of a person cannot be viewed, and that's what goes into driving a business. On the other hand, it's tangible in the sense that they will deliver tangible results that can easily be measured and even be seen and felt. Yes. So in that way, then I would talk. You can talk about, both being applicable. Yes.
And just looking. You obviously launched this report last week.
Yes.
Top 5 trends: culture and engagement, leadership, learning and development, reinventing HR and workforce capability.
Right.
How did you come up with those 5 top trends in human capital and how its applicability in Kenya?
Oh, great. And I think we can start from the survey itself. Actually, the participants in Kenya and what you're seeing, what we're calling the Human Capital Trends Report for Kenya, is actually taken out of the bigger report that Deloitte had, which is the Deloitte Global Human Capital Trends Report. And so we had participants from 3,300 organizations, 3,300 participants from different organizations globally. Actually had 106 countries participating, and in Kenya 43 different organizations. And therefore the whole purpose of the Kenyan trends is first of all to say, okay, this is what is happening in the Kenyan space. These are the challenges that the organizations are facing. But also look at ourselves, because we're also part of the global village, as people call it. How aligned are we to what is happening globally? And then also then say, if we're that aligned, then it's imperative for us to begin to deal with these challenges, because it's not, it's not just a geographical concern, it's a global concern, and therefore it's a reality that has to be dealt with.
Top 5 trends: culture and engagement.
Yes.
When you look at organizations, different organizations have different ways they operate. So we hear the happiest place to work globally perhaps is Google. When you look at a Kenyan context, because I know you launched a yardstick by the way you measure best places to work with, best places to company to work for rather. When you look at culture and engagement, how big of a factor is it in the productivity, for the company, for an individual in terms of their career aspiration, and thirdly, just how it drives general good corporate governance? Okay.
Now, if we think about the definition of culture, in its most basic terms, is the way we do things. So when you talk about an organization's culture, you're talking about the way they do things in that organization, both from a technical perspective, the way, if you're a producer, the way we produce our product, but also the way we engage with each other in an organization. And then when you think about culture, culture drives engagement. The way we do things determines how people are engaged, how passionate and purposeful they are about what they do. And so if you're talking about how important it is, I don't think you can never overemphasize the importance of culture and engagement. And part of the findings of our best companies to work for, which you mentioned, best company to work for survey, which we run annually as Deloitte, consistently we have found that the things that drive engagement, the things that employees term as the most important, is related to culture. How do we do things? Because that also now begins to speak into the reputation of the organization, and by inference, the reputation of the individuals. And if you think about culture and engagement, then and the outcome being engagement, that's where you talk about productivity and effectiveness of an organization. The more engaged people are, the more productive they are. And there's something we call the holy grail of of engagement, which is discretionary effort. And people give discretionary effort when they are engaged. And discretionary effort is all about doing beyond what is required of you. And so an organization that has employees that are not fully engaged, while they may look like they're doing well on the face of it, they never know the potential they have of doing well, because that discretionary effort is not available, and so they don't even know that it exists and to what extent. So culture and engagement is just the bedrock of success in a business.
Let's touch on something that was in the report, and it had to do with skills gap. Kenya has always prided itself with having more or less a well-educated workforce. I mean, that's what Clarion called when we got there looking for investors to come in. But the survey also mentioned that especially corporations and multinationals coming in, there's some skills gap that they are finding. Obviously, naturally, we wouldn't have enough skills in the oil and emerging sectors like oil and gas. But what other sectors are these that corporations and actually multinationals are not finding the requisite skills?
Okay, and I think I can respond to your question, Michael, alluding to something that you had mentioned. When we were talking about one of the other top trends in Kenya, and the critical one is leadership. And what it means is that whilst people are well educated, so they have the knowledge and even skills to do the technical work that is required, especially at the entry level all the way to middle level, they don't have the leadership skills that are now even more critical to drive businesses. So it's very well to know how to do something, but it's another thing to have the leadership capability to help others do what the business requires them to do, and secondly, to even begin to envision the future and begin to motivate and direct people to act in line with what they expect the future should bring. So yes, when we talk about the skills gap, we're talking about the skills gaps, skills that are deficient. Yes, even in the financial sector industry, there is banking sector, and of course part of it is because of what we would say as the huge growth in businesses. You see organizations that were previously just Kenyan businesses now are regional businesses. So there is a huge demand, and the demand is very fast. It's happening quicker than we are able to grow people. So that there is that, but also in the leadership area, and that's where we see a dearth of capability and skills.
All right, we can't let you go without asking best company to work for. Who do you think is going to win this year?
That would be the best kept secret, wouldn't it be? No, but I think, and I like that you have mentioned that again. And I think for us to be able to, to have a robust competition, and so that then we say yes, the best companies to work for, we need more people participating. And why we say that is one of the challenges that we have, and sorry Michael, I'm probably digressing a little bit, is because one of the challenges we've had in Kenya in terms of being able to talk about and provide guidance in areas of that relate to human capital is the lack of data. And so for us, it's very important for us to have more participant organizations and from diverse industries participating, so that yes, then we have data that will be able to help us identify trends and be able to provide guidance in terms of what should businesses in the region be doing, so that they are able to be competitive and also to face the future boldly.
And also make people happy.
And make people happy. So who wins is up to anyone's guess, but it will be determined by who participates as well. And we invite everybody to participate, every organization, both big and small.
All right, thank you very much. That's been Marianne Mwangi, manager at Deloitte, just telling us about the Kenyan Human Capital Trends Report for 2015 and what it was all about. Culture and engagement, leadership, learning and development, reinventing HR and workforce capability, top 5 trends that emerged from that report. We take a short commercial break, but don't go too far. When we come back, we have much more, especially to do with reopening of Westgate Mall. We have our reporter Charles Gitonga, who's going to be joining us live from that area, and also we have the KQ Senate inquiry that happened yesterday, and just what the Senate is looking for in as far as the national carrier is concerned. So don't go too far.